Yes, we're reading Edge magazine number 2, November 1993. And I want to take a second look at this advertisement for Dune 2. What I find fascinating is that you don't see the gameplay. You see, um, yeah, like a reel. It's as if it's a movie of sorts. Now, we love Dune 2 because it was a totally new genre and it played for its time amazingly well. The first true real-time strategy game that was fun for everybody, and they sell it like it's a movie, as if it's something passive. I find that fascinating, which is indicative of the times back then. As we see in the rest of this magazine, people just wanted to have movies that were somewhat interactive. So, on to speaking of movies and stuff, network television. So now you get to play video games via your television set. And Nintendo did this mostly in Japan. And they had some funky version of Zelda. And some other titles that people are trying to get into ROM versions. And the Sega Channel was big in America, as far as I know. And yeah, it was fun for some people being able to play games via their television, or at least buying them via their television or renting them. And we have something similar now with PlayStation Network, right? So this is an article about the future of that. And Renegade also has something that's British. So yeah, you could play Sensible Soccer and Chaos Engine via the TV. Pretty cool. Yeah, look at this. Interactive TV will spawn 1 million interactive shopping, moving, watching, and gaming experiences. Pretty close. But they're talking about the internet, of course. We have test screens, some reviews. Here we have Tatsujin 2, which is also known as Truxton 2, the sequel to the greatest game of all time. At least you would think that if you followed Classic Gaming Room, which is one of my favorite YouTube videos. And I didn't know there was a sequel to Truxton until I read this magazine. And yeah, the ongoing gag about Truxton is that while Mark on his program Classic Gaming Room considers it the game to compare all other games to, it's Truxton 1 at least is just a completely generic shooter. It's not that very special at all. I just think that Mark grew up, I think Mark loves the Genesis, and I think that Truxton was his first game on the Genesis, so he came to love that game. Part 2, well, Edge gives it an 8, but Edge has, at least at the time, had a soft spot for generic side-scrolling shooters. So I'm not surprised it got an 8. And I read the review, and there's no indication of it being better than the original. So, yeah, that's Truxton 2 for you. More of the same. More of the same for the manga commercials. Thunderhawk was a preview last month. Now the review, and it gets a 7. Kind of like playing Starwing on the Sega CD. I think this one looked better, but wasn't as interesting to play. Jurassic Park for the Super Nintendo. Kind of meh. I don't think anybody really likes this game. And Street Fighter 2 Turbo for the Mega Drive. Called Special Champion Edition, but trust me, it's just the same as Hyper Fighting. And, well, it's... Play the Super Nintendo version, because this version doesn't have very good sound. Still gets an 8, though. Turrican 3 only gets a 6. I've never played this version. The first couple Turrican games, which I all get confused with the Super Nintendo versions, They were quite really spiffy at the time. Not as good as Contra, but they looked fantastic, had great sound, and the controls were good. So if you wanted to jump around and shoot things, go for Turrican, especially if you had an Amiga. Again, this Expo I keep seeing, so let's skip that. Oh, now this is interesting. Edge magazine was the magazine for the professionals. So they had recruitment advertisements for people wanting to work in this. And we're going to see a lot more of that in later editions, like 20 pages every edition. You know, want to make games with us? But this is it. And yeah, you can win a Philips CDI. That'll be cool. And look, we have Zelda. Now speaking of classics, Aladdin for the Mega Drive. An 8, should have been a 9 if you ask me. Might actually be the best game on the Mega Drive next to Sonic. Yeah, it's everything a 2D platformer should be. Now the game does drag on a little towards the end. But yeah, check it out. And I hope it's been remade on, like, I don't know, the Virtual Console, because people should not forget this game. Oh, and the area of Dave Perry, who at the time was really cool kid. And he for years on end, he's featured in Edge magazine because he was very approachable for some reason. Before this, he made Cool Spot, and after this, he made Earthworm Jim, which solidified him. And then he made games like MDK, which was a commercial flop, even though it was really good. And then there was Enter the Matrix, which sucked. And interesting career. Anyhow, Top Gear 2, kind of a bland racing game, only gets a 6. Oh. Get your head around this. Oh, again, this Expo they keep talking about. Oh, yes, I do have issue number 3. And Future, the publisher, has all these other magazines. I noticed this time they have Amiga Power. Wonder why they didn't have that last month. But yeah, a magazine dedicated to playing the Amiga. And multiple magazines for Nintendo and Sega. We have the letters. Oh, I didn't check out the letters before doing this video, but I love this question, for example. Out of 3DO Jaguar CD3 to help me choose the right system. Well, the answer is Super Nintendo. But it's easier with hindsight to say that. And there's a lot of praise for how good this magazine is, which it was at the time. I think it's kind of silly now. It's just, yeah, it's not. It doesn't have the quality that Edge has now. But at the time, it was a video game magazine for adults with an attitude simply demanding that you knew what you were reading about. And wait a sec, no, I love this. The review section seems a bit pointless, as most people will buy a magazine that deals with their own machine for games reviews. Now, that's the way it was in England when it came to magazines. And yeah, concentrate on the future, inside information, and so on. Well, that's what Edge does. Anyone can review games. Well, Edge also writes the best reviews, at least it does nowadays. So I'm glad they do both. Q&A, that's what Edge did for quite a long time. Technical questions like, well, how can I use MPEG? You know, what's up with SCART? So technical questions, pretty cool to look into. And I learned quite a lot of things getting into this part of the magazine. And you'll never guess what's next month. What are these things on their head? It says so on the box, virtuality. I never really heard that term before. But yeah, virtual reality was a buzzword in 1993, and people found out that interactivity is what games are about. It's not about being able to look around in a 3D space. And then people forgot that virtual reality sucked, and now we're trying again, and it's 2017. and I don't think many people have been convinced so far that it's worth spending money on. Although that Resident Evil Biohazard game, it's pretty cool. And what's the other one? Thumper. That's better in virtual reality, but nah. So almost a black page. You have the little E here. And that's Edge Magazine number 2. See you next time with the 3rd edition. Bye.